This video is sponsored by War Thunder. The Brothers in Arms series stood out in a market that was at the time crowded with World War II shooters. To truly understand why, let's go back to 1998, when director Steven Spielberg released his seminal war drama, Saving Private Ryan. At that time there was relatively little interest in the genre, but this film captivated audiences and they wanted more. Spielberg saw his film not only as entertainment, but also as an educational experience. During the post-production process of Saving Private Ryan, he visited the office of DreamWorks Interactive and outlined a new idea. Having watched his teenage son play GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64, he thought to himself, could we create a World War II shooter that would educate players about the conflict? They got to work, and by November 1999, Medal of Honor was released to the public. The game was a massive success, demonstrating that video games could tackle weighty topics like World War II with care and respect. It wasn't just a shoot 'em up, it also offered small history lessons as you played through the game. Gameplay-wise, it was still quite simple, given that it was 1999, but Medal of Honor set the absolute gold standard for all subsequent World War II shooters. And World War II shooters were exactly what we received in spades. Spielberg's 1-2 punch of Saving Private Ryan and Medal of Honor had a huge impact on entertainment in the early 2000s. We saw many sequels to Medal of Honor, the emergence of the Call of Duty and Battlefield series, and the release of the 10-part miniseries Band of Brothers. Yet another project of Spielberg's creative vision. For me, personally, Band of Brothers is my favorite piece of World War II media of all time. It features great writing, acting, visuals and authenticity, but most importantly, it beautifully portrays a brotherhood that was forged between each soldier. It's that authenticity and character-focused drama that was still missing in the gaming space. While Call of Duty introduced cinematic quality and Battlefield brought a sense of scale to the genre, no video game had managed to capture the emotional depth and intensity of Band of Brothers. But in 2005, Gearbox Software set out to change that with the first game in the Brothers in Arms series. Welcome to the first part of a two-part series on the Brothers in Arms games. In this video, we'll explore the first two games, Road to Hill 30 and Earned in Blood. The next video will focus on the third game, Hell's Highway. So, with that introduction out of the way, let's dive into one of the most immersive and authentic World War II games to date, Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30. Gearbox Software started development of Road to Hill 30 in 2003. This would be their first fully fledged video game, as they had previously only worked on expansions and ports of existing franchises. The main question the team wanted to answer was, what was it like to be an American soldier during the D-Day invasion in France? They aimed to tell a story from the squad level, to truly understand the brotherhood between soldiers. In Brothers in Arms, we follow a squad of paratroopers from the 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment, who jump behind enemy lines before the invasion to knock out the beach defenses and make the invasion possible. Gearbox Software spent a full year researching the D-Day invasion, examining thousands of photos, documents and maps from the National Archives. Afterwards, they traveled to Normandy to gather photo references and walk the same routes the soldiers had taken. Most of the maps that made it into the game are recreations of actual towns, farms and roads. This authenticity extends to the story of the game. While most characters are fictional, almost all of the events that happen in the game are based on reality. Gearbox went above and beyond, talking to real veterans and truly trying to understand what actually took place in 1944. To ensure that Brothers in Arms would be as accurate to life as possible, Gearbox enlisted the help of retired Army Colonel John Antal. He served as the historian and advisor for the team. John provided the team with a course on war history, covering periods from ancient times up to the modern day. He also extensively discussed the tactics an infantry unit in World War II would have used. But it didn't end there. The colonel made sure the development team understood what it was like to be a soldier back then. He took them on a training exercise where they dug foxholes, ate rations and fought mock battles using paintball guns. They trained in squad maneuvers, learned how to recognize and use cover, practice marching and much more. Of course, this was nothing close to what the real men went through back then, but the development team gained a lot of insight from this experience, and it shows in the final product. When it came to designing authentic weapons for the game, Antle had one final trick up his sleeve. While you might be able to create a solid imitation of a weapon without ever firing one, nothing compares to the experience of handling the real thing. To ensure the highest level of authenticity, the Colonel took the team to a firing range where they fired actual World War II weaponry. This hands-on experience gave the team a true understanding of a gun's weight, the kick when firing it, and the sound it makes. To create believable teammates and enemies, Gearbox designed the characters to behave like real trained soldiers. They were fully capable of engaging the enemy, covering each other, and finding good firing positions. The team researched and analyzed other tactical and strategy shooters to develop their own unique spin for Brothers in Arms. They created a system where you control a maximum of 2 squads, which you can order to move, attack, assault or fall in. More on that in the gameplay section of this video. One particularly novel idea was the suppression system, where firing upon an enemy made them less likely to shoot back. The team also worked extensively on ragdoll physics, ensuring that if a grenade explodes near an enemy, they will be sent flying and react to their environment, creating a great cinematic effect. To further enhance the cinematic quality of the game, motion capture was used to capture human performances as the basis for the game's animations. After these were recorded, the hands, feet and face were tweaked manually before they were implemented into the game. And to round out the development section of this video, I want to highlight the sound and music of the game. Weapon sounds were recorded live at a firing range. Additionally, many environmental sounds were captured using a technique called Foley, which involves mimicking sounds with props to reproduce those that weren't recorded live. And for the music, they hired first-time composer Stephen Harwood. The team aimed for a blend of 40s style music and a sweeping epic score in the vein of John Williams. They spent 4 days in the Czech Republic, where they recorded about 45 minutes worth of music. It was performed by the Musa Philharmonic Orchestra, and I have to say it's a really memorable score, especially for a first-time composer. And that's all for the development section of the video. I think Gearbox's decision to go to France and dedicate an entire year to researching all the details of the D-Day invasion was a bold move, and one that in my opinion paid off significantly. And now let me take a short break to tell you about War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's available now for free on PC and consoles. Take command of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters and ships of over 10 major nations, ranging from biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s to the fighter jets and main battle tanks of today. Immerse yourself in the intense combat of War Thunder, where incredibly detailed vehicles, realistic graphics and authentic sound effects place you right at the helm of the most powerful war machines of our time. Don't have a high-end PC? No worries, the game runs on the in-house developed Dagor engine, which is fantastically optimized to deliver a lag-free experience with impressive visuals and high frame rates, even on lower-end machines. Join a worldwide community of over 70 million players in epic PvP battles today. And with an unmatched wealth of high-quality content to discover, there's simply no better game suited for fans of military history. Play War Thunder now for free on PC, PlayStation or Xbox. Use my link in the pinned comment or video description to sign up. New players and those who haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack on PC or consoles. That includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions and 7 days of premium account. Available for a limited time only, so don't miss it. Now, let's take a closer look at the first game in the series, Road to Hill 30. The game begins with an intense flash-forward sequence that culminates in the brutal death of one of your squad mates, immediately setting the tone for the rest of the game.
Take me! Take me!
This is no light-hearted arcade shooter. Following this introduction, a beautifully executed opening credit cinematic introduces you to the men you are about to lead. After that, it's straight into the plain above Normandy, and straight into the mind of our protagonist Matt Baker.
I never asked to be squad leader, but I had no choice. Now I've got 13 soldiers under my command. 13 men depending on me to make the right decisions and not get them killed. 13 families relying on me to bring their husbands and sons home. 13. 13 is not a lucky number.
From this moment forward, we remain entirely within Baker's mind and perspective. The men check their equipment and sound off. Suddenly, the plane shudders as it gets hit by anti-aircraft fire. We are forced to jump and take one last fleeting look at the invasion unfolding below, before being blown out of the doorway into the chaos. Thankfully, you have survived the jump. Over the course of the night and into the next morning, you manage to link up with some of your squad mates. It is at this point that you first take command of a firing team. Let's take a look at the core gameplay loop of Brothers in Arms. Whenever you encounter an enemy squad, a red circle appears above their heads, indicating their confidence level. A full red circle means they are confident, firing accurately and posing a significant threat. As the circle depletes to grey, it indicates they are suppressed and too scared to fire back effectively. This gives you or one of your squads the opportunity to move in closer to flank them. The developers coined a term for this tactic, the 4 Fs.
First, you want to find the enemy. It's always good to find him first. Next, you want to fix him. You want to fix him with all the firepower you have. The third F is to flank him. You want to move an element to his flank, left, right, or rear. Finally, you want to finish him. And to finish him, you need an assault element to get in close and take him down with either fire or direct assault.
You take control of either 1 or 2 teams at a time. These consist of a firing team, which excels at suppressing the enemy, and an assault team, which, you guessed it, is the best at assaulting and flanking. Gearbox did an excellent job with the controls in my opinion. You can do everything with just 3 buttons. Holding the right mouse button allows you to either give a move command or an attack command. Combining the right mouse button with a left click directs your selected team to assault an enemy position. Additionally, using the shift button lets you switch between firing teams. Holding this button causes the selected team to fall back to your position. There's also a situational awareness view, allowing you to see the battlefield from above. This feature is useful for planning attacks and finding flanking routes. Gearbox included this ability to replicate the advantage World War II paratroopers had in studying their terrain before missions, giving players similar knowledge. Personally, I didn't use it much, as it made the experience feel a bit too video gamey for my taste. The core gameplay loop of the 4 Fs was a smart and innovative concept, particularly given the era in which this game was released. The added layer of tactics provided a breath of fresh air. Unlike many games of the time, your squad isn't just window dressing, you actually need them to succeed. The weapon handling in this game is quite realistic, with significant weapon sway and recoil. Some players disliked this aspect, but I believe it was a smart design decision. With a bit of practice, you can learn to control the recoil and weapon sway quite well, adding depth and challenge to the gameplay. The levels are well designed for the most part, featuring a mix of countryside and small towns with various types of cover. The friendly AI generally does a solid job of finding cover and following your commands. However, they occasionally get themselves killed by randomly running out into the open. The enemy AI, while groundbreaking at the time, still had its flaws. Enemy squads that aren't suppressed will try to flank your position, but they do a poor job of defending their own flanks. If they see you, they often just stand there and take the hits. These AI issues were vastly improved in the sequel, Earned in Blood, which I will discuss later. Prior to the game's launch, the developers emphasized a guiding principle for the level design, which was, "We want to take you out of the corridor and into the real world." This phrase expressed their desire to move away from the scripted linear style of game design that was standard at the time. In my opinion, they only half succeeded with this. While the game is not as heavily scripted as, say, a Call of Duty game, each combat encounter essentially has one main solution and at most 2 alternate routes, if any. For a game that places such emphasis on tactics, it still feels somewhat limiting in this regard. During the initial playthrough, this might not be too noticeable, but after replaying the levels, they basically all play out the same. Also, the scenarios don't really evolve past the 4 Fs. You're doing the same thing all throughout the game, which is a lot of fun at first, but becomes a little bit repetitive later on. And while we're on the topic of areas where the game could improve, let me discuss the remaining aspects I didn't like, so we can move on to what Brothers in Arms does best. There's one mission where you have to clear a field of wooden poles set up by the Germans to prevent Allied gliders from landing safely. It's a cool idea and reflects real life. However, the process of blowing up each individual pole becomes very tedious, especially since you have to destroy over 15 of them throughout the mission. Another frustrating aspect is that some parts of a map can be so restrictive that there's only one route forward. On one map in particular, this route was quite hidden and it took me a long time to figure out how to proceed. This felt like a significant oversight. For some reason, the reload key is bound to F by default. This is also the key you need to press to trigger the animation for throwing a grenade into a tank, which can lead to some very awkward situations. And most frustrating of all is the tank AI. In a few missions you get control of a tank, but commanding it is a nightmare. It often takes multiple orders before the tank follows your commands, getting you or your team killed in the process. Oh, and one final thing, if you play at higher frame rates, there's a game-breaking bug in the current Town Part 1 level. Sergeant Hasse won't be able to get over a particular pavement. Locking your FPS to 60 will resolve this issue. I don't really hold the devs accountable for it, since the game isn't designed around high frame rates. Alright, let's switch gears and talk about what Brothers in Arms did better than any World War II shooter that came before it: storytelling and immersion. The story of Road to Hill 30 itself isn't groundbreaking, but it's the delivery that makes it shine. All of the game's events are told through the eyes of Matt Baker, with each chapter beginning with him narrating his thoughts. This narrative style gives players a glimpse into Baker's mind, revealing his self-doubt and struggle with leadership. He feels unprepared to lead his men, and the weight of his responsibilities take a significant emotional toll on him.
I've spent 8 days here. 8 days commanding a squad I wasn't ready to lead. 8 days watching my men, my family, be killed. 8 days wishing it would stop.
Throughout the game you get to know your squad mates, each with a distinct personality. Gearbox did an excellent job of making them sound like regular guys, without any overacting.
Why would anyone think Batman's a sissy?
Superman doesn't even have a cool identity. He just puts on glasses and acts like a jackass.
And it's a wonder you don't like him, Leggett.
My only gripe with the characterization is that there's just too little of it. You get brief moments at the start and end of each mission to learn about them, but outside of these short scenes you don't get to spend enough time with them. It was especially disappointing to learn that Gearbox had a whole prologue mission built, where you could talk to all of the guys before the jump. Including this prologue would have greatly helped in forming an emotional connection with your men.
This was actually a really rough cut for me, because I actually envisioned this really awesome little scene where he'd introduce all the characters, but we ran into innumerable problems while trying to get this in pacing and acting and just a bunch of stuff. This is also kind of painful. Little Zanovich and Obi here, they didn't get a whole lot in the end of the game, and this is their little interchange about what are the odds we're going to die, and I thought it was pretty funny. But
knowing what you know now about what happens to Obrysky in the church tower, it makes this more interesting. But you know, it's all exposition again, and we're not playing yet, so we're just walking around looking at guys and hearing them talk to each other.
This is another good one, a little tidbit for everybody playing. Hartsock does have a daughter, so this is what this little interchange is about. He's scared he's never going to see his daughter again.
When you inevitably start losing some of your squad mates, the game does an amazing job of showing the mental toll it takes on Matt and his friends. It doesn't shy away from depicting their emotional struggles, which adds significant depth to the narrative. As it stands, the game far exceeds any narrative in World War II shooters that came before it, but I can't help but feel like there's some wasted potential here. Next up is immersion, where I feel the game truly comes into its own. The battles in Brothers in Arms look, sound and feel incredible. While the game wasn't the most graphically advanced for its time, it made up for it with deeply engrossing combat experiences. When you're being fired upon, for example, dirt and grass shoot up and the camera shakes. When you get hit by a grenade or mortar, you get knocked off your feet and enter a shell shock state. It's all really well done and very immersive. For me, the audio completely steals the show. The guns sound loud and punchy, whether fired by allied troops or the enemy. The battle chatter makes the firefights feel incredibly visceral. Whenever you issue a command, you hear Baker shout it out. As bullets fly around and your men shout back, it really puts you right in the middle of the action. You can hear the desperation in your men, as their voices break while shouting. We had heard battle chatter before with the first Call of Duty, but this truly added a whole new level of immersion. The audio team really deserves a shout out here. Their work is just phenomenal. I mean, when it starts raining, you can hear the damn raindrops falling on your helmet. The only decision they made that I don't like is the fact that they cut almost every piece of music from the game for the sake of realism. Sure, the real soldiers didn't have a soundtrack during pivotal moments, but in a video game, music can greatly enhance the emotional impact of a scene, especially with a soundtrack as good as this one. And that wraps up my thoughts on the first game in the series. While not perfect by any standards, it's an earnest attempt to portray the experience of being a paratrooper in World War II. It didn't quite reach the level of Spielberg's masterpiece Band of Brothers, but it came much closer than its competition. Fans of Brothers in Arms didn't have to wait long for a sequel though. In fact, it was released that same year. Let's take a look at Brothers in Arms Earned in Blood.
Hey, Red, how many men you lost under your command?
More than I'd care to count. Pierce, Berenson, 3, Johnson, Caserza, Black, Coffin. People think you should be afraid of war. I'm not afraid of the fighting. I'm not even afraid of dying. But I am afraid of letting my men down.
How much can a developer achieve in just 7 months? Well, the results speak for themselves. Earned in Blood plays largely the same as Road to Hill 30. However, the game improved on a few key points. First up is the story and its presentation. In this game, you play as newly promoted Sergeant Joe Red Hartsock, who was a corporal under Baker in the first game. The story is presented as a recollection of earlier events, with Army historian Colonel Samuel Marshall interviewing Red more than 15 days after D-Day. Including Marshall in the game was a great addition to the storytelling. Firstly, it grounds the experience, as Marshall was a real army historian during the Normandy invasion. And secondly, it gives the protagonist more screen time, compared to the brief lines spoken by Baker before each mission. You can divide the story into 3 distinct parts. The first part follows Red as a member of Matt Baker's squad during the initial days of the D-Day invasion. The second part picks up where the first game ended, with Red taking command of 2nd Squad during the liberation of Carentan. And the final part is set in and around Saint-Sauveur. One of my main complaints about the story in Road to Hill 30 was the limited time given to get to know the squad mates. Earned in Blood addresses this issue by filling in some of those gaps in the first third of the story and further developing and adding characters throughout the rest of the game. The story complements the first game well, making the overall narrative more complete. That's why I recommend playing these games back to back. One of the ways the game improves its storytelling is through short narrated sequences during missions. In these moments, the screen turns grey, and we hear Red and the Colonel talking.
What's wrong? Alan and Garnett died the next morning. The solo was the day after.
Do you need a minute? Sergeant Hartsock, do you need a minute?
No, sir. I'm fine. Let's keep going.
It's a really smart way to get more narrative into the game during missions. I'm really glad that the lead writer got a lot more of his work into the game, as it was sad to see so much was cut from the first game.
In Earned in Blood, we wanted to make the story feel like it was enveloping the player a bit more. So in this one, we wanted to place story tentpoles to kind of carry over into the fight. So at times we'd be talking to Corporal Doyle from the 82nd, who's also Sergeant Doyle later. And you'll be talking to him, and something will happen and it will spur into the battle. And then Doyle will go off and start fighting, and then you'll kind of crisscross through the level. There are points where you'll be commanding your fire teams and he'll be commanding his guys, and it'll be like these massive battles fighting tanks and things. And so the story exists both outside the battles and inside the battles quite a bit more cohesively than it did in the first one.
So yeah, Gearbox made massive improvements to the storytelling, and to tie it all together, they presented it in a really cinematic way. There are a lot more cutscenes, but they're not the long, boring exposition type. Most of them are really short and add either more grit, character building, authenticity, or all of the above. I found myself caring a lot more for my squad in this game compared to the first. It's not a storytelling masterpiece, but I can't deny that I felt something during this scene.
fucked up here, Sarge. Everything. I had to get us here.
The battle chatter from the first game returns, with more unique voice lines, now more context sensitive as well. When you're out of combat, the voices are calm, steady and at a normal volume. However, when you're engaged with the enemy, the voices become louder and more stressed.
Campbell! Rally! Paddock! Squad rally on me! Campbell! Go!
Another detail I appreciated was that when you switch weapons or talk to an NPC, your character automatically puts their rifle on their back, which is a small but nice touch. Alright, let's shift our focus to the gameplay improvements Gearbox made to Earned in Blood. There are just 2 to speak of, so this is where you can feel that 7-month development time the most. The first noticeable improvement is the smarter enemy AI. This time around, enemies are much more dynamic and responsive to your actions. They actively employ the 4 Fs I spoke about earlier. This marks a significant upgrade from Road to Hill 30's AI. The second and final enhancement is seen in the maps, which are now slightly larger and more open. Additionally, there's an increased focus on urban combat compared to the first game. However, despite these advancements, Earned in Blood introduces some new issues. For instance, while the improved AI retreats when flanked, a smart tactical move, they sometimes retreat to corners of the map where they can't be flanked, leading to frustrating encounters where you must charge them and hope for the best. Another issue that arose in this game is the significant difficulty spike in the final missions compared to the earlier ones. It feels as though these missions weren't even playtested. For example, in one mission you have to confront 2 tanks with no cover for your fire teams and the only anti-tank weapon is located across the map, past the difficult choke point. This is just one example of many. The final frustrating aspect I found is that Red can no longer throw grenades into tanks, a capability Baker had in the first game. It doesn't make sense why this ability was removed for Red. Earned in Blood also added some multiplayer and co-op features, but I haven't played them, so I can't comment on their quality. Overall, this sequel excels in storytelling, but feels more like a sizable expansion in terms of gameplay. With a bit more development time, it could have been an even better experience. Despite this, both Brothers in Arms games did an excellent job of standing out amidst the oversaturation of World War II games at the time, delivering a fresh, tactical and cinematic experience that Gearbox can be proud of. Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30 was very positively received, with an average Metacritic score of 87 on PC. It was also a commercial success, selling 1.7 million copies by the end of March 2005. Earned in Blood was also met with praise, acquiring an average Metacritic score of 84. I couldn't find any information on its sales, sadly. And as you may have noticed, Matt Baker was voiced by Troy Baker, who's one of the most well-known video game voice actors of all time. Brothers in Arms was actually one of the first video game gigs he ever did, and it changed the direction of his career.
David Gary was a dear friend, fellow musician in Dallas. He's the guy that roped me into this whole gig. He was like, hey, we're doing a game, you got a cool voice, do you want to come and talk into this microphone and be this? The guy's name's actually Baker. I thought it'd be funny. So I went to Gearbox and I went across from his office, which was a closet, a server room, and we turned off the AC. And I turned off the lights for some reason, and I talked into the microphone, and I said, you know, I never wanted to be. That was it. That was just how. I never asked to be squad leader, but I had no choice, and that's how I became Matt Baker. Now I've got 13 men under my song. I mean, I like that. I could recite that entire thing.
Were you going to be an actor at that point? Is that what you wanted to do? No.
I was gonna be a rock and roller, man. I was gonna be a musician. I was gonna set the world on fire with my music.
So that changed the course of your career, that one moment.
Another interesting fact is that David McGarry, who voiced Red in both games, also composed the soundtrack for Earned in Blood. He's one talented dude. One of the coolest and most mid-2000 aspects of this game is that the History Channel created a full 2-hour documentary on the 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment, using footage from the game to depict the group's invasion of Normandy. And in an almost poetic twist, it was presented by Ron Livingston, who starred in Band of Brothers. And that's what I love about this series. While it is fun to play, it also serves as a window into history. I feel like Brothers in Arms achieved what Steven Spielberg aimed to do with the first Medal of Honor title all those years ago. The combination of incredible dedication to authenticity, an extra section filled with history lessons, and a 2-hour documentary on the conflict make these two games truly one of a kind. And with that, I want to end the first part of this retrospective series. Join me next time as I dive deep into the third and final part of the Brothers in Arms saga with Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway. Shout out to War Thunder again for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check out War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation or Xbox and use my link in the pinned comment or description down below to register. Those of you who are new or haven't played for 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms, including multiple premium vehicles, in-game currency and more. Hey, thanks for watching my video all the way through. I hope you enjoyed it. The second part of this series is in the works, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it when it goes live. Let me know what you thought about the video in the comments down below. Alright, that's it for now. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.